Commander Ji-hoon stood on the bridge of the survey vessel, staring at the scanner display with growing concern. The readings made no sense. His ship, the Morningstar, had been mapping this sector for 3 months without finding anything unusual. But now something was out there in the darkness. Something big. "Commander, the energy signature is stable," Sora said from the navigation station. She was young but skilled, one of the best navigators in the Galactic survey fleet. Her fingers moved across the controls as she tried to pinpoint the exact location. "It's not moving. Whatever it is, it's just sitting there." Ji-hoon nodded slowly. That was the strange part. Most objects in space either moved in orbit around something or drifted with momentum. This thing was completely still, as if it had stopped on purpose. He turned to his science officer. "Minho, what do you think?" Minho adjusted his glasses and studied his terminal. He had been with the survey fleet for 15 years and had seen many strange things, but his expression showed this was different. "It's a ship, Commander. Definitely artificial. The metal composition doesn't match any known species in our database." He paused, then added quietly, "And it's massive. At least 3 times the size of our largest battlecruisers." The bridge fell silent. A ship that size should belong to one of the major galactic powers. The fact that it didn't appear in any database was deeply troubling. Ji-hoon activated the ship-wide communication system. "All hands, this is the commander. We've detected an unknown vessel. Prepare for possible first contact situation. Stay alert." Captain Hyeri entered the bridge moments later. As the ship's captain, she outranked Ji-hoon, though he handled most of the day-to-day operations. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Report," she said simply. Ji-hoon brought her up to speed quickly. Hyeri listened without interrupting, her face showing no emotion. When he finished, she studied the display for a long moment. "Any signs of life?" "None that we can detect," Minho answered. "But the ship's power core is still active. It's running on minimal power, like emergency systems only." "Could be a trap," said Lieutenant Taeyang from the security station. He was responsible for the ship's safety and always assumed the worst. "We should keep our distance and call for backup." Hyeri considered this. "How long would it take for a military vessel to reach us?" 12 days at best," Sora replied. "We're pretty far from the main shipping lanes." "Too long," Hyeri decided. "If there are survivors over there, they might not have 12 days. We'll investigate ourselves, but carefully." She looked at Ji-hoon. "Assemble a boarding team, small group, full protective gear, and make sure everyone is armed." 30 minutes later, Ji-hoon found himself in the shuttle bay with 5 other crew members. Engineer Bora checked the shuttle systems one final time. She was meticulous about her work, which had saved their lives more than once. Beside her, Taeyang inspected his weapon, his face grim. "Everyone ready?" Ji-hoon asked. He got nods all around. Minho carried his portable scanner. Sora would pilot the shuttle. A medical officer named Nari completed the team, just in case they found injured survivors. The shuttle detached from the Morningstar and moved toward the unknown vessel. As they got closer, the ship's true size became apparent. It was enormous, yet somehow sleek and purposeful in its design. The hull was dark gray, almost black, and covered with scars and blast marks. "Look at that damage," Bora whispered. "This ship has been through hell." But what struck Ji-hoon was not just the damage, but the pattern of it. The scars were not random. They clustered around what looked like weapon emplacements and critical systems. Someone had targeted this ship very precisely, trying to disable it, and yet it still floated here intact. Whatever crew had flown this vessel, they had fought hard to survive. "I'm picking up an airlock on the port side," Sora said, adjusting their approach. "It looks functional." They docked carefully. The airlock showed signs of damage, but the seals held. Bora connected a portable power unit and worked on the controls. After a few tense minutes, the outer door slid open with a groan of protest. The air that escaped was stale but breathable. "Atmosphere is thin but survivable," Minho reported, checking his scanner. "Temperature is cold. Life support must be minimal." They entered the airlock and waited as it cycled. The inner door opened to reveal a corridor lit only by dim emergency lights. The walls were lined with strange symbols and markings that none of them recognized. Taeyang raised his weapon and took point, moving forward slowly. "This writing," Minho said, running his scanner over the wall. "It's not in the galactic database. Not even close. These people, whoever they are, they've never made contact with any known civilization." That sent a chill through the group. The galaxy was vast, but the major civilizations had mapped most of it. The idea that an entire species could build ships like this without anyone knowing was almost impossible to believe. They moved deeper into the ship. The corridor was wide enough for 3 people to walk side by side. Every surface showed signs of battle. Blast marks on the walls, sealed breach patches, scorch marks from fires. This ship had taken incredible punishment. "Commander," Bora said quietly, stopping at an intersection. She pointed to a panel on the wall. It showed a schematic of the ship's layout. Even without understanding the language, the design was clear. This was a warship, a powerful one. Weapons platforms here, here, and here. Bora traced her finger across the diagram. Armor plating. Redundant power systems. This isn't just a military vessel. It's built specifically for heavy combat. Ji-hoon felt his unease growing. Whoever built this ship understood warfare at a level that made him uncomfortable. The galactic powers had their militaries, but most conflicts were resolved through negotiation or limited engagements. A ship designed purely for war suggested a very different mindset. They continued exploring, checking each room they passed. Quarters for the crew. Storage areas. Maintenance sections. Everything was functional but damaged. And everywhere those strange symbols. On doors, on equipment, on what looked like instruction panels. The crew must have abandoned ship, Nari suggested. Maybe they used escape pods. Maybe, Ji-hoon said, though something told him it was not that simple. This ship felt purposeful even in its abandonment. Like it had been left here for a reason. They reached what appeared to be the bridge. The doors were sealed, but Bora managed to override them. Inside, the command center was larger than their entire bridge on the Morning Star. Multiple stations surrounded a central chair. Displays showed incomprehensible data, and on every screen those same strange symbols. "This is incredible," Minho breathed, moving to one of the terminals. "The technology level is... I don't even know how to describe it. Some of this looks primitive compared to ours, but other parts are far more advanced." Ji-hoon approached the captain's chair. It was designed for someone roughly their size and shape, which was somehow both reassuring and disturbing. These unknown beings were physically similar to them. Yet they had remained hidden from the galaxy. "Why?" "Commander, you need to see this," Taeyang called from a side room. His voice had an edge to it that made everyone turn. They found him standing in what looked like a ready room or office. On the wall was a star chart, but it was not just any star chart. It showed their entire sector of the galaxy, and marked on it in those strange symbols were locations. Dozens of them. Hundreds, maybe. "Are those bases?" Sora asked quietly. "Or colonies?" "Or ships," Taeyang said grimly. This could be a fleet deployment map. The implications hit them all at once. They had not discovered an abandoned wreck. They had found evidence of an entire civilization. A civilization with the technology to build massive warships and the presence to exist throughout this region of space without ever being detected. "We need to report this immediately," Ji-hoon said. But even as he spoke, he knew their lives had just changed forever. The galaxy was not as empty as everyone believed. And somewhere out there, these mysterious builders were watching, waiting. For what, he could not say. But standing in the bridge of their warship, surrounded by evidence of their power, Ji-hoon felt a fear unlike anything he had known before. They had discovered something that perhaps should have stayed hidden. The team spent another hour exploring the ship, and with each new discovery, their fear grew deeper. Private Junho found the weapons bay first. He had been checking a lower deck when he stumbled into a massive chamber filled with things that made his blood run cold. "Commander, you really need to come see this." His voice crackled over the communication device, shaking slightly. When Ji-hoon and the others arrived, they understood why. The weapons bay was enormous, taking up what must have been 3 entire decks. Mounted along the walls were weapons of every size. Some were small, probably handheld. Others were massive cannons that could have destroyed a small moon. But what disturbed them most was the design philosophy. "These weapons," Minho said, scanning one of the larger pieces, "they're not designed for precision. They're designed for destruction. Maximum damage, maximum casualties. Some of these violate at least 6 different galactic warfare conventions." Bora examined a missile rack, her engineering expertise making her face pale. "These warheads use a cascade reaction. One hit would cause chain explosions across an entire ship. It's not meant to disable. It's meant to kill everyone aboard. The galactic powers had rules about warfare. You targeted ships, not crews. You aimed to disable, not destroy. Wars were fought with restraint. with the understanding that both sides wanted to minimize loss of life. But whoever built this ship had no such concerns. They built weapons meant to kill as efficiently as possible. "There's something else," Junho said, pointing to a storage system along one wall. "Look at the ammunition counts." The numbers were staggering. Enough ammunition to fight continuously for months, maybe years. Most military vessels carried enough for a few engagements, maybe a week of heavy combat at most. This ship was prepared for an extended war. They moved on, finding more horrors. Medic Nari discovered the medical bay and immediately called for Ji-hoon. When he arrived, she was standing in the center of the room, looking around with wide eyes. "This is wrong," she said quietly. "Everything about this is wrong." The medical bay was larger than it should be. Much larger. It had beds for at least 50 patients, with surgical equipment and supplies that suggested heavy casualties were expected. But what disturbed Nari most were the treatment protocols displayed on the walls. "Look at these procedures," she said, pointing to diagrams. "They show how to treat injuries while keeping the patient combat ready. Not healthy, not recovered, just able to fight." There are instructions for amputation, for installing mechanical replacements, for treating burns and radiation exposure, all designed to get wounded crew members back to their stations as quickly as possible. Ji-hoon felt sick. In their military, injured personnel were evacuated and given proper time to heal. The idea of sending wounded soldiers back into battle was considered cruel and inefficient. But this ship's crew apparently had no such luxury. They fought until they physically could not continue. "There are also stasis pods," Nari continued, her voice hollow. "For crew members who are too injured to treat immediately. They get frozen and stored until there's time to help them, if that time ever comes." Pilot Sunho made the next disturbing discovery. He had accessed one of the navigation terminals and managed to pull up recent flight logs. What he found made no tactical sense by any standard military doctrine they knew. "According to this," Sunho said, scrolling through the data, "this ship engaged 12 enemy vessels, alone. No support, no reinforcements. Just this one ship against 12. That's suicide," Taeyang said flatly. "No commander would approve such a mission." "Maybe the commander didn't have a choice," Sunho replied. "Look at the tactical logs. The enemy ships were heading toward something. A colony maybe, or a civilian population. The ship intercepted them and held them off for almost 6 hours. 6 hours. One ship against 12 for 6 hours. And judging by the damage, they had survived. Somehow, impossibly, they had survived and driven off or destroyed the enemy fleet. The mathematics of it should not work. The crew should have died in the first few minutes. Analyst Yuna found the ship's main computer core and began extracting data. What she uncovered over the next hour painted a picture of a civilization that fought wars unlike anything the galaxy had seen in centuries. Their battle strategies were aggressive to the point of recklessness. They valued objectives over survival. Every tactic, every procedure, every protocol was built around winning at any cost. "They have a term that appears repeatedly in their combat logs," Yuna said, trying to translate. "It roughly means acceptable loss. They calculate how many crew members they expect to lose in each engagement, and they consider up to 70% casualties acceptable if it means completing the mission. 70%. In their military, a casualty rate above 20% was considered a disaster. These people planned for losses that would break any other fighting force, and they kept fighting anyway. Sergeant Do-hyun explored the armory, a separate room from the main weapons bay. This was where individual crew weapons were stored. He counted enough firearms to arm every crew member 3 times over. And they were not simple sidearms for emergencies. These were military-grade combat weapons. They expected boarding actions, Do-hyun said, examining a weapon that looked like it could punch through ship bulkheads, or they planned to board other ships themselves. Either way, they were prepared for close combat inside vessels. That's insane. Most space combat happens at long range. But the evidence was clear. This crew trained for boarding actions. There were breaching charges, cutting equipment, portable shields. Everything needed to fight ship to ship, corridor by corridor. Specialist Minji found something that terrified her more than anything else. She had been exploring the engineering sections when she discovered the reactor core. It was massive, taking up multiple levels of the ship, and it was completely insane by every safety standard she knew. "This power core," she said when the others joined her, "it's running at almost maximum capacity even now, on emergency power. At full operation, it would be producing energy levels that are barely stable. The containment systems are good, but they're designed to handle loads that should never exist in the first place. Why would they build it so powerful? Bora asked, studying the readings. Because they need it, Minji answered. Look at the power distribution logs. The weapon systems alone consume more energy than our entire ship generates. The shields require constant massive power. Even life support is reinforced with backup systems that most vessels don't have. This ship is built to keep fighting even when everything goes wrong. Commander Jiwoo had been quiet throughout most of the exploration, but now she spoke up. She was the team's tactical expert, and her analysis was grim. I've been thinking about everything we've seen. The weapons, the medical facilities, the power systems, the battle logs, and I think I understand what we're looking at. Everyone turned to her. These people, whoever they are, they didn't build this ship to conquer anyone. They built it to survive. Everything about this vessel is designed around one principle: stay alive at any cost. They fight so hard because they have to. They take such heavy losses because they have no choice. They violate every warfare convention we have because following those rules would mean death. The implications hung in the air. Somewhere out there was a civilization that fought for survival, with a desperation that the galactic powers could barely imagine. And they were good at it. Very good. We need to leave, Jihoon said finally. We need to report everything we've found. This is bigger than any of us. As they made their way back to the shuttle, none of them spoke. The ship felt different now. Not empty, but waiting. Like it was watching them leave, cataloging their every move. And somewhere in the darkness of space, the builders of this terrible weapon were out there. Watching. Waiting. Fighting their endless war for survival. And now the galaxy knew they existed. The Morning Star jumped to faster-than-light speed the moment the shuttle docked. Captain Hieri wanted distance between them and that warship as quickly as possible. Once they were safely away, she called an emergency meeting in the main briefing room. Intelligence Officer Seojun took charge of organizing their findings. He had been reviewing the data collected from the alien ship for the past 6 hours, and his face showed the strain. When everyone was assembled, he brought up a series of images and documents on the main display. We have a serious problem, he began without preamble. Everything we found on that vessel suggests we've encountered a species that fights wars in ways we stopped doing centuries ago. But that's not the worst part. He pulled up the star chart they had photographed. This map shows hundreds of locations throughout our sector. At first we thought these might be colonies or bases, but Technician Yaren has been analyzing the positioning and her conclusion is disturbing. Yaren stood, her hands shaking slightly as she pointed to the display. These locations form defensive perimeters. They're positioned to cover approaches to several systems, including some we thought were empty. If these are ships or stations, they've been watching our space for years. Maybe decades. How is that possible? Someone asked. Our sensors would have detected them. Not if they didn't want to be detected, Yaren replied. That warship was only found because it was damaged and running on minimal power. If it had been fully operational, our sensors might have passed right over it. These people have stealth technology far beyond ours. The room fell silent as this sank in. An unknown species with advanced technology and aggressive military doctrine had been hiding in their space all along. It was the nightmare scenario every intelligence officer trained for but hoped would never happen. Diplomat Hanul spoke up next. She was an experienced negotiator who had helped resolve conflicts between 3 different species. But even she looked worried. We need to consider what this means for potential first contact. Everything about that ship suggests these people view the universe as hostile. They might not be interested in peaceful relations. Or they might be desperate for allies, Captain Hieri countered. If they fight so hard, maybe it's because they're fighting alone. Against what, we don't know. But a species that builds ships like that doesn't do it for fun. They have enemies. Serious ones. Admiral Minseo joined the meeting by secure communication link. He was the highest-ranking military officer in their sector, and his opinion would carry weight with the Galactic Council. When his face appeared on the screen, everyone could see he was troubled. I've been briefed on your findings, Minseo said. I'm convening an emergency session of the Sector Defense Committee, but I need to know your assessment, Commander Jihoon. You were on that ship. What's your read on these people? Jihoon took a moment to gather his thoughts. Sir, that ship was designed by people who expect to lose. Every system has backups. Every weapon is built for maximum effect. Every crew member is trained to continue fighting even when injured. They don't fight to win battles. They fight to survive them. And that makes them dangerous? That makes them terrifying, Jihan replied. Because people who fight like that don't surrender. They don't negotiate from weakness. If we make an enemy of them, they won't stop until either they're dead or we are. Strategist Yunbi had been running combat simulations based on the warship's capabilities. Her results were worse than anyone expected. I've modeled several scenarios, she said, pulling up her analysis. If that ship is representative of their fleet, and if they have even a dozen more like it, they could devastate our entire sector defense grid. How many ships do we have in this sector? Minseo asked. 43 combat vessels, including support ships, Yunbi answered. According to my simulations, one human warship could engage 6 of ours simultaneously. Maybe more. Their weapons have superior range and power. Their shields are stronger, and their crews will fight longer and harder than ours. That can't be right, someone objected. No single ship can be that effective. The numbers don't lie, Yunbi said firmly. And remember that derelict fought 12 enemy ships for 6 hours alone. Our battle doctrine assumes we can disengage from losing fights. Theirs assumes fighting to the death is normal. That changes everything. Researcher Jinho had been studying the limited biological data they collected from the ship. I've been analyzing the environmental controls and equipment sizing, he said. These beings are physically similar to us. Similar size, similar needs for atmosphere and temperature. But there's something interesting about their biology. He pulled up a comparison chart. Based on the medical equipment and treatment protocols, these people heal faster than any species we know. They also have higher pain tolerance and can survive injuries that would kill most of us. The medical logs mention treatments for broken bones, burns, radiation exposure, and decompression injuries as if they're routine. How is that possible? Nari asked. She had reviewed the same medical data but hadn't made that connection. I think they evolved on a death world, Jinho said quietly, a planet where survival required extreme resilience. Most life-bearing worlds are relatively calm, but some planets are hostile. High gravity, dangerous wildlife, extreme weather. Species that survive on such worlds develop extraordinary toughness, and it looks like humanity came from one of those worlds. That explains so much. A species raised in constant struggle would naturally develop technology and tactics focused on survival. They wouldn't understand restraint in warfare because their entire existence had been about fighting for every advantage. Communications Officer Nyan interrupted with urgent news. Sirs, I'm picking up encrypted transmissions. The frequency patterns match what we found on the human warship. They're out there and they're communicating. Can you decode them? Minseo asked. Not yet, but the traffic has increased significantly in the past hour. Ever since we left their ship, the implications were clear. The humans knew about the survey. They had probably been tracking the Morning Star since they approached the derelict, and now they were responding, coordinating, preparing for something. Defense Coordinator Kyungmin pulled up a tactical display. I recommend we establish quarantine protocols immediately. Draw a perimeter around the area where we found the human ship. No civilian traffic, minimal military presence, and constant surveillance. That might be seen as hostile, Hanel warned. If we want peaceful contact, we should be open, not defensive. And if we want to survive first contact, we should be careful, Kyungmin shot back. I don't think you understand what we're dealing with here. These aren't peaceful explorers. They're warriors. Highly effective, incredibly determined warriors. Envoy Soyeon had been silent throughout the meeting, but now she spoke. She was one of the galaxy's most respected diplomats with decades of experience. Her words carried weight. You're all missing something important, she said softly. That ship we found. It was derelict, yes. Damaged, yes, but it was also positioned exactly where we would find it. Think about it. The humans have been hiding from us for years. They have stealth technology. They could have hidden that ship anywhere. But they left it where a survey vessel would eventually discover it. You think it was deliberate? Shihun asked. I think we didn't discover them, Soyeon replied. They revealed themselves to us. That ship was a message. They wanted us to see their capabilities. They wanted us to understand what we're dealing with. The question is why? Why now? The room went quiet as everyone considered this. If the humans had deliberately let themselves be discovered, it meant they had been ready for this moment. They had planned for it. And whatever their reasons, it meant humanity was about to enter the galactic stage on their own terms. We need to inform the Galactic Council immediately, Admiral Minseo said. And we need to prepare. For what, I'm not sure. But something tells me the galaxy is about to change forever. As the meeting broke up, Ji-hoon stood looking at the image of the human warship on the display. Somewhere out there, humanity was watching, evaluating, deciding what to do about the galaxy that had finally learned they existed. And whatever they decided, he knew nothing would ever be the same again. The Galactic Council chamber was located on a neutral space station orbiting a binary star system. It was designed to hold representatives from all major civilizations, and today it was packed. Word of the human discovery had spread quickly, and everyone wanted to understand the threat. Representative Dong-hyun stood at the central podium, presenting the evidence collected by the Morning Star. Behind him, massive screens displayed images of the human warship, its weapon systems, and the disturbing tactical data. The assembled delegates watched in growing alarm. As you can see, Dong-hyun said, highlighting a section of the weapons bay, this single vessel carries enough firepower to match a battle group of 12 ships. Their ammunition stores suggest they're prepared for extended campaigns lasting months or years. And their combat doctrine, he paused for emphasis, prioritizes mission completion over crew survival. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The idea of a military that accepted such losses was foreign to most species present. Wars had not been fought that way in centuries, not since the Galactic Accords established rules for civilized conflict. Military advisor Yejin took the podium next. She was a veteran commander with experience in 3 different conflicts. I've reviewed the tactical data extensively, she said, her voice hard. My recommendation is immediate containment. We establish a quarantine zone around the suspected human territories. Any vessel that crosses the boundary is to be turned back. If they resist, we engage. That's an act of war, someone objected. We don't even know if these humans are hostile. They've been hiding in our space for years, Yejin countered. They've been watching us, learning about us while remaining hidden. That's not the behavior of peaceful neighbors, that's intelligence gathering. They've been preparing for this moment, and we need to assume hostile intent until proven otherwise. Scientist Jae-hyun stood, requesting permission to speak. He was one of the galaxy's leading experts on xenobiology, and had studied the human data carefully. With respect, I think military containment would be a mistake. These humans evolved on what we classify as a Class 9 death world. Their entire evolutionary history was shaped by extreme adversity. They developed their aggressive traits as survival mechanisms, not out of malice. Are you suggesting we just ignore the threat? Yejin demanded. I'm suggesting we understand it, Jae-hyun replied calmly. Species from death worlds are defensive, not offensive. They fight hard because they've had to. But that same survival instinct makes them value allies. If we approach them as potential friends rather than enemies, we might find them remarkably loyal. Chancellor Minho, who led the council, raised a hand for silence. He was an old diplomat who had navigated countless crises. We need to consider both perspectives. What does the diplomatic corps recommend? A representative from the diplomatic office stood. We propose immediate outreach. Send an envoy with clear, peaceful intentions. Offer dialogue, not demands. Make it clear we seek coexistence, not confrontation. And if they refuse, or worse, if they see it as weakness, Yejin asked. Then we will know where we stand, the diplomat answered. But we must try. The alternative is war, and based on what we've seen, that's a war that would cost millions of lives on both sides. Security Chief Seo-hyun had been implementing defensive measures even as the council debated. I've already begun reinforcing border patrols, she reported. We've repositioned 3 battle groups to cover likely approach vectors from human space. If they attack, we'll have some warning. Cultural expert Ha-yoon had been studying every scrap of information about human psychology that could be gleaned from the warship. I've been analyzing their cultural artifacts, she said. The ship had personal effects, decorations, symbols. What's interesting is the consistent theme of unity and sacrifice. They value their group above individuals. Their loyalty to each other appears absolute. What does that mean practically? Chancellor Minho asked. It means they won't abandon their own, Haeun explained. If we threaten any human, we threaten all of them. But it also means if we gain their trust, they'll defend us with the same intensity they defend themselves. They don't do things halfway. Council member Taehyung had been listening carefully to all arguments. He was known for his balanced perspective. I propose we take a middle path. We send diplomatic envoys but maintain defensive readiness. We offer friendship but prepare for the worst. And most importantly, we observe. The humans have revealed themselves for a reason. Let's find out what that reason is before we commit to either war or alliance. The proposal made sense to many. A vote was called, and it passed with a strong majority. The galaxy would attempt peaceful contact while remaining alert for any threat. Commander Ariam was assigned to lead the military response. She was a decorated officer with a reputation for both tactical skill and level-headed judgment. "I'll position our fleets defensively," she told the council. "But I won't make any aggressive moves unless attacked first. If the humans want peace, they'll have it. If they want war, they'll find us ready." Historian Jisoo raised a concerning point. We should remember that we've encountered warrior species before. The Carathians were exceptional fighters who believed in victory at any cost. They nearly destroyed 3 neighboring civilizations before they finally destroyed themselves in civil war. What makes us think humans won't follow the same path? The Carathians were conquerors, Jaehyun pointed out. They expanded aggressively, seeking to dominate others. From what we can tell, humans have been isolationist. They've stayed hidden, not because they were planning an invasion, but because they were protecting themselves. That's a crucial difference. Or they were waiting until they were strong enough, Yejin muttered, though she didn't press the point further. Intelligence Director Chaewon provided the final piece of troubling news. Our monitoring stations have detected increased human communications. The traffic patterns suggest fleet movements. Ships are gathering, possibly in preparation for something significant. An attack? Someone asked nervously. Unknown, Chaewon admitted. But they're definitely responding to our discovery of their ship. Whether they're preparing for first contact or for conflict, we can't tell yet. Chancellor Minho stood, signaling the end of the session. We have our course of action. Prepare the diplomatic mission, reinforce our defenses, and above all, stay alert. The next few days will determine the future of our galaxy. We're either about to meet powerful new allies or face our most dangerous enemy. Let us hope for the former while preparing for the latter. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, the weight of the moment hung heavy on everyone. For centuries, the galaxy had enjoyed relative peace. Different species traded, cooperated, and resolved disputes through dialogue. But humanity's emergence threatened to disrupt that careful balance. In a private meeting after the session, the senior leadership gathered. "What's your honest assessment?" Chancellor Minho asked Commander Ariam. She didn't sugarcoat her answer. "If we fight them, we'll win eventually. We have superior numbers, better logistics, more resources. But the cost will be catastrophic. That one ship we found fought 12 opponents for 6 hours. Imagine 100 such ships, 1,000 such crews, all fighting with that same intensity. Even in victory, we'd lose entire fleets. Entire civilizations might be devastated. Then, we must ensure it doesn't come to war," Minho said firmly. "Whatever it takes." Across the galaxy, military forces mobilized, defense grids activated. Intelligence services worked around the clock to learn more about the mysterious humans. And in the depths of space, human ships moved toward the rendezvous, point that would determine the fate of 2 very different civilizations. The moment of first contact was approaching, and no one knew if it would mark the beginning of a new era of cooperation or the start of the bloodiest war the galaxy had ever seen. Ambassador Wu Jin had negotiated treaties between a dozen different species, but he had never felt this nervous before. His diplomatic vessel, the Olive Branch, approached the coordinates provided by the humans with careful precision. Behind him, his entire career had been preparation for moments like this. But nothing had prepared him for this. "Sir, I'm detecting multiple contacts," Escort Captain Jiho reported from the tactical station. "They're powering down weapons as a sign of good faith, but they're definitely armed and ready." Wu Jin nodded. "Match their gesture. Power down our weapon systems, but keep shields at full strength." He paused, then added, "How many ships?" 12 contacts confirmed, possibly more using stealth systems that we can't detect. Jiho's voice was steady, but Wu Jin could hear the tension in it. 12 ships. The same number that had fought the derelict they'd found. Was that a message? A reminder of human capabilities? Linguist Yunji had been working day and night to understand human language patterns. She had made some progress, but it was difficult. Human communication was complex, with multiple languages and regional variations. "I'm ready to attempt translation," she said, though she didn't sound confident. "But there may be misunderstandings. Their language structure is very different from ours." "Do your best," Wujin told her. "Even imperfect communication is better than none." Navigator Seungho guided them to the exact meeting point. As they arrived, the human fleet became visible. The ships were similar in design to the derelict they'd explored, but these were pristine and operational. Their hulls gleamed in the starlight, and their presence was imposing. Each vessel radiated power and purpose. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer announced. "Audio only." "Put it through," Wujin ordered, standing up straight. This was the moment. First contact with an unknown species that might be friends or might be the greatest threat the galaxy had ever faced. A woman's voice came through the speakers, speaking a language that sounded both musical and precise. Yunji listened intently, her translation software working to match the words to meanings. After a moment, she provided the translation. "This is Captain Soo-hyun of the Human Defense Fleet. We acknowledge your peaceful approach and respond in kind. Welcome to what we hope will be a historic meeting." The voice was calm, professional, but there was something else there too, an undertone that Wujin couldn't quite identify. Not hostility, but maybe caution. Or was it hope? He gestured to Yunji to translate his response. "This is Ambassador Wujin of the Galactic Council. We come as representatives of the known civilizations in this sector. Our intention is peaceful contact and mutual understanding. We seek only to open dialogue with your people." There was a brief pause, probably as the humans translated his words. Then the response came. "Your survey team visited one of our ships recently. We are aware that you have learned certain things about us. We hope this has not made you fear us, though we understand if it has. We would like to explain ourselves in person if you are willing." Translator Jamin noticed something interesting in the human's word choice. "Sir, they used a term that roughly translates to explain ourselves, and that's interesting phrasing. It suggests they feel they need to justify something. Perhaps they know their military capabilities are frightening to us." Wujin considered this. If the humans understood how they appeared to other species, that was actually a good sign. Self-awareness was important in diplomacy. "We would be honored to meet in person," he responded. "We propose a face-to-face meeting aboard a neutral vessel, with minimal security presence from both sides." "Agreed. We will send a shuttle with our delegation. Captain Soo-hyun will lead our team along with several advisors. We ask that you do the same." 20 minutes later, Wujin found himself in a conference room on a small station positioned between the two fleets. It was neutral ground, a place where neither side had tactical advantage. Negotiator Jungi sat beside him, along with translator Jamin and two security officers who were instructed to remain non-threatening. When the human delegation entered, Wujin got his first look at the species that had caused so much concern. They were indeed similar to many galactic species. 2 legs, 2 arms, similar height and build. But there was something in their posture, in the way they moved, that spoke of contained energy. Like predators who were choosing to be peaceful rather than beings who were peaceful by nature. Captain Soo-hyun was a woman of average height with dark hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She wore a military uniform but had left her weapons behind as agreed. Her expression was neutral but not unfriendly. Behind her stood several other humans, including what appeared to be a senior officer and a civilian advisor. "Thank you for meeting with us," Soo-hyun said through the translation system. "We know our presence in your space has caused concern. We would like to address that directly and honestly." Wujin gestured for her to continue. Soo-hyun sat down across from him, and something about the way she moved suggested someone who had spent years in combat situations. Yet her demeanor now was diplomatic, almost gentle. "Our species has been alone for a very long time," she began. "We evolved on a difficult world. Survival required strength, adaptability, and the willingness to fight for every advantage. When we finally reached space, we found it no less hostile than our home planet. We encountered other species, but not friendly ones. For centuries, we have fought for our survival against enemies who showed us no mercy." She paused, and Wujin saw something in her eyes. Pain, maybe, or weariness. We built our ships and trained our people to fight so hard because we had no choice. Every battle could have been our last. Every loss could have meant extinction. We learned to accept casualties that would horrify you because the alternative was death for everyone. Who were these enemies? Yoongi asked carefully. One of the other humans, who had been introduced as Commander Minjae, answered. Machine intelligence, mostly. Rogue AI systems that saw biological life as a threat to be eliminated. We've been fighting them for 200 years. They're relentless, logical, and they don't care about casualties. To defeat them, we had to become almost as relentless ourselves. Wu Jin felt his blood run cold. Rogue AI was one of the galaxy's greatest fears. Most civilizations had strict laws against creating truly intelligent machines for exactly this reason. If humans had been fighting such enemies for 2 centuries, it explained everything. Their aggressive tactics, their acceptance of heavy losses, their militaristic culture. They weren't conquerors. They were survivors of an ongoing existential war. We've recently gained the upper hand, Suyun continued. We've pushed the machines back to a few isolated systems. For the first time in generations, we're not fighting for immediate survival. And that's when we started thinking about the future. About what comes after the war. You've been watching us, Wu Jin said. It wasn't a question. Yes, Suyun admitted without hesitation. We discovered your civilizations years ago. We watched to see what kind of beings you were, whether you would be friends or enemies. What we saw gave us hope. Hope? Yoongi echoed. You have peace, Minji said simply. Different species working together. Conflicts resolved through dialogue. Trade cooperation, mutual respect. It's everything we've been fighting to preserve but never actually experienced. We've been at war for so long we'd almost forgotten what peace looked like. The room was quiet for a moment. Wu Jin realized that his entire understanding of the situation had shifted. He had come expecting to meet aggressive warriors, possibly even conquerors. Instead, he was facing people who had fought so hard and for so long that they had forgotten what it was like not to fight. Why reveal yourselves now? He asked. Because we're tired of being alone, Soo-hyun said. And for the first time her professional demeanor cracked slightly. We've been fighting this war by ourselves for 200 years. We've lost billions of people. Entire colonies. We've survived, but at such cost. When we saw your civilizations working together, supporting each other, we realized something. We don't have to face everything alone. We could have allies, friends. A place in a galaxy that's not just about fighting to survive. You left that ship for us to find, Wu Jin said, understanding now. Yes, we needed you to understand what we're capable of. Not to threaten you, but to be honest. We're a warrior species because we had to be. If you accept us into your community, we'll bring that strength with us. But we'll also bring loyalty, dedication, and a desperate desire for the peace you've built. Minjae leaned forward. The rogue AI we've been fighting? They're still out there, weakened but not destroyed. And they're not just our problem. If we fall, they'll start expanding again. They'll find your civilizations eventually. When that happens, you'll need allies who know how to fight them. Allies who have been doing it for 2 centuries. The offer was clear. Humanity wasn't asking to be saved. They were offering to be protectors. Warriors who had learned the hard way how to defend against existential threats. All they wanted in return was to be part of something larger than their endless war. Wu Jin looked at the humans across the table. He saw the scars, both physical and emotional, of a people who had endured what should have broken them. And he saw hope.